This is Marooned Gala, live on Rugby Radio.
Yes, welcome back to Netherdale, with the next big match on the main pitch being the first semi-final of the tournament between two Scots and Kelso. But before that, I'm delighted that the SRU have finally decided to award caps to all those who pulled on the jersey in uncapped international matches. Great news for the likes of Rob Moffat, Craig Redpath, Gary Isaac, Mark Moncrieff, many others, including Steve Ferguson, Ian Ramsey, Gary Waite, and pre-war players as well from the borders. It's been a long time coming. Sadly, some of those players haven't survived to see it, but one man who is very much alive, I'm glad to say, is Gala's Mark Moncrieff, who now coaches the youngsters here at the club at Gala, and absolutely thrilled that he's joined us now at the back of the stand. And first of all, many congratulations, Mark.
Yeah, thanks very much, Stuart. It was a pleasant surprise last Monday afternoon when I got the call for Graham Law, who you may recall was a rugby journalist in the 90s for the Scotsman. So yeah, he made the call, and I was taken aback. I'm a bit of a blether. I come from a sales world, so I was pretty silent when I got it, but equally delighted.
Yes, absolutely, because, I mean, I've always been disappointed, as you know yourself, that you never got a cap, because you played several times in the Scotland jersey in uncapped games, and I always felt very, very sorry. In fact, I've never really got over that on your behalf, but you kind of had to get over it, sort of thing. And the last time we interviewed you, which was about 2 years ago, on the pitch down there, it was kind of like you said, well, yeah, it's happened and we just move on. But now, of course, the tables have turned.
Very much so. I think when back then in the early 90s, you were very much aware there were uncapped tours. In 91 there was a World Cup that year, so there was about 3 or 4 senior players didn't come, so that's why they weren't awarded. And in 93 when they did the South Seas tour, again it was a British Lions tour that year, so again there was a handful of Scottish senior players didn't tour, so that was the reason. So you actually knew before you went, albeit within yourself you were probably disappointed, but you saw the world, you were touring places that you would never see as a normal person at all. But wonderful.
Now, I understand you're getting the cap for the American match, is that right?
Yep, so how Graham explained it was in Connecticut in 91, that was my first test match as such, so you get a physical cap for that. What I didn't ask him, and probably because I was stunned into silence with the news, was I played in 4 others, so I don't know if the other 4 will count towards having 5 in total, but I'm quite happy with the one. Waited 31 years, so we'll cross that bridge at a later stage, I'm sure, with the SRU.
But these were big countries. I mean, certainly big countries now in terms of rugby. I mean, there's Canada, there's Fiji.
Yeah, it was Canada, USA, Fiji, Tonga and Samoa in my instance.
Yeah, all big nations now.
Pretty much so, yeah. So no, I'm just delighted for everybody involved, all these players, the 56, and he said sadly there's a number of them no longer with us, but I'm sure the families will take great pride and cherish that when the time comes to get the presentations.
So what does it mean to you now that it's sunk in after a few days?
Yeah, I mean, I'll know live when I got off the call, I have to say there's probably a little tear in the left eye, if I be honest. I think when you've played at that level, and as long as I did, you kind of park these things at the back of the brain and never dwelled in it, and until it came to the fore in the last few months. I'd heard rumours they were potentially going to do something. Ireland did something in April. There was 12 players got retrospective caps, and Brian O'Driscoll's father being one, Frank. So we had murmurs amongst the rugby echelons that this might happen, but yeah, it's sunk in. And what I've been absolutely blown away with is the amount of people that have texted, all the social media platforms. I'm not huge on them, but I've been on this week. I'm going to respond at some point probably next week to thank everybody, but it's people I haven't seen for 10, 20 years, some of them, and guys from Glasgow, North and Midlands, some abroad, and very much the local community as well. So it's a good news story. Often the SRU are getting flung into the flames or the fire, but there's not been any negativity that I've seen, so it's a really good news story, and I applaud the SRU for doing it.
Now, when you were playing in these uncapped internationals, presumably they did the national anthem, you had all that kind of stuff, didn't you? So yeah, it's like a full-blown one.
It was just as you see now then, you got the full national anthem, it was treaty prepared as a professional, or as professional as it was before it did ultimately go professional in 95. So no, it was fantastic. I mean, as I say, you were going to be with your mates, guys who've played for at club level, district level, then you had the ultimate going on a tour to another country. It was fantastic.
And those were the days which will never be repeated, the days of the countries going on tour, playing provincial sides and visiting like the Zimbabwe's and South Africa and New Zealand. I mean, a fantastic experience which will never happen again because of the way rugby is.
Sadly not. I think it'll only possibly even at club level, I wouldn't think it'll happen in the pro game. It might get away for a weekend somewhere, Ireland or France, possibly if they're from the UK. But no, back then you did community work. So in Fiji, for instance, we went to a lot of schools on our sort of time off, and we did a few projects there, and the same in Tonga. I mean, absolutely beautiful countries in their own right, and the people were very welcoming. And rugby, as you know, in the South Seas is absolutely huge, predominantly known for their sevens prowess, but they were big physical fellows, and as you see, I'm not the biggest, so I've got a few big hits on me.
What was the closest you came to a full cap then, when they called them full caps?
Well, they'd probably be the nearest. I mean, the World Cup, if you recall, to bring it back up again as you have done in the past, Stuart. So I was fortunate to be in the World Cup squad in 91, but it's been documented I was the only one out of the 26 that never sat on the bench or played an active part. So I've had a few people, I've always had a moan and groan about that, but again, I'm pretty placid about it. That's the circumstances I found myself in. I was we had a great team, and I was only caring about the success of the team that World Cup. And if you recall, they went out to England in the semi-final by a penalty, which was devastating for the whole group.
So what happens now then? Do we know about there'll be some kind of ceremony obviously going on?
Yeah, Graham Law alluded that the Home Nations Games in February next year, 2024, there'll be something, I'm not sure at both because of the numbers involved, but there'll certainly be a presentation to the players that have been awarded them at either both games, or they'll split it and do it in two groups over the two home internationals.
Right, well, we certainly look forward to a high-profile ceremony there. Of course, not everyone is going to be awarded caps, I understand, because Hoyk's Donny McLeod, for instance, played against Zimbabwe and Holland, and he's not currently on the list, even though Holland were strong enough to beat Japan back then. And when England played Holland, I think it was about 110 nils, it was a big score, but England awarded caps in that match as well. So there's a strong case that decision could be reversed, and let's hope so, because I mean, really, I mean, you know, these teams, I mean, they're saying that the uncaps were for the tier 1, tier 2 nations,
right?
But tier 1, tier 2 wasn't a thing back then in those days, and of course Holland beat Japan at that time. So, you know, personally, I think, you know, if you donned a Scotland cap jersey and it was in an international against another country, that should actually be allowed. So we're trying to campaign for them as well, aren't we?
And rightly so. I mean, I'm not sure of I'm not familiar with the background to that one in particular. It's a question for the SRU and the hierarchy there, why they've made the decision on Donny McLeod's one. But no, if he's played in that jersey and he's played against what was deemed then an international country, it would make sense to me that it's deemed a cap. But without knowing the full story behind it, it's difficult for us probably to come to a conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. But obviously, whilst we've got you here,
yep,
talk about the World Cup that's coming. You say you went out in, 1991, wasn't it?
A long time ago.
Long time ago. But looking at the way the fitness regimes are now and everything else, it's a different ball game completely. It's professional rugby. And to me, you know, I haven't seen a Scotland squad more confident, more fit and more prepared for this World Cup. What's your own kind of take?
Agree entirely with what you're saying. I think Gregor and his team, the coaching staff, have done a phenomenal job, and the resources are now there, the finances all behind them. These players are at clubs that are professional, so their diets are all right, the whole nutrition, their recovery, they're in pools within 8 hours of the game's finishing, they get all the best treatment, and rightly so. So no, I think looking at the squad as a whole, from my point of view, it's as balanced as you'll get and as strong as you'll get. And I think the last couple of performances have shown that. I mean, France in particular, I mean, it's phenomenally come back with the victories and losing just out last weekend. So no, I wish them all the very best. It'll be a lovely arena, and hopefully they can get out of that group.
Yes, they're all very confident, I have to say. They were very relaxed the other day when the actual media day was happening, and none of them want to be known as underdogs. They want to be on like the level playing field with South Africa and Ireland.
And that's wonderful to hear, because I think often in years gone by, Scotland have dwelled on the fact we're probably the underdogs, and kind of get one good performance out of 4 or 5. But if they've got that confidence going into the World Cup and the whole atmosphere, that's only generated by the coaches and the players themselves. Yes, they'll live off the crowds and the audiences in the games, but when they're in, they're quite lonely, they're isolated for a long time, so they've got to self-generate that confidence. So it's good to hear that they're in good spirits.
Now, it's good that you're still involved heavily in the rugby game, which is good, and your boy is doing rather well, Nairn Moncrieff. We've seen him in action. A lot of potential there for him. You must be very proud.
Yeah, Nairn's is coming up 17. He's in the system, and his rugby is now. You've got to be in that system. So he's got his training. He lives, breathes, and eats his rugby, as a lot of kids do, or young youths. So no, I certainly watch him with great interest, and I wish him all the best. And he gets all the support from the club, and obviously his mum and I, and his other immediate family. So no, hopefully it'll all go well for him.
And the Gala Wanderers that you're involved
Yep.
with as well, some good youngsters coming through.
Yeah, Stuart, I mean, when I look across the whole under-18 age group, I love watching the games, because in every club there is a sprinkling of real talent, and it's honing that talent. It's allowing these guys to get the opportunity to get up the ladder, which is difficult now if they're not picked early on. So no, I love watching this age group. I do a minimal role. I'm in the manager side, so it's just making sure the buses are there, and anything the boys need, and the coaches I'll liaise with the club. So it's a minimal role, but I do enjoy going to watch them when I can. The ones themselves this year, there's about 12 boys moved up to senior rugby, which is fantastic. It's a development path. It's the ones, so that's good. Under 16s, there's about 11 have come up, and there's a good, again, handful of real quality players. But as we say to them, if the ball's in your court, you've got to have aspirations to do well. It comes back to training regimes, eating correctly, sleeping, get off the Xbox, get your sleep. So we say all the right things to them. It's whether they listen and take that on. But certainly they're not a bad group of players to work with.
And this is what we need, isn't it? More and more youngsters coming through and feeding the senior teams.
Yeah, I think if I look at Gala in particular, last year they never really had a seconds. It was very intermittent. I think Dean and Craig this year, that are the coaches, are trying very hard to create a two-team structure. So if a player has a poor game in the first, there's another player that can be put up, and another boy that's dropped has to work hard. You need to get that balance going in the competition between these players, and that's something that's been lacking. But numbers have been good over here. I've not been down at the senior training, but I hear there's 35, 40, and it's just keeping them coming though. Some of them can get switched off pretty quickly these days. So.
But events like this, obviously marooned at Gala, and we're looking at the back pitches now, and since about 11 o'clock this morning, there's been kids of all ages, and that's just wonderful to see, isn't it?
It is. I mean, the format's changed in the last 3 years with the Maroon Day, which I think has been an absolutely fantastic decision by the executive at Gala, and you're getting grandparents, aunties, uncles, the parents, you've got all the kids. I don't know, it'll be 500-600 minis here. You've got the Vixens, you've got the under 16 and so forth. So no, it's good for the club. Hopefully can generate some revenue, because finances are tight across the board at all clubs just now. So these are big events to try and generate some income to keep the club going.
And you're fairly confident, certainly at Gala, that this stream of youngsters are coming through, their relationship with Gala Academy, and everything else that's developing around that.
It's like any relationship, Stuart. It has to be worked on continually. So the school have been fantastic. The Academy, Big Davy Payton and James Carmichael. James Carmichael. They've been down, so they've met with us all. So it's constantly changing, but you've got to. It's compromising sometimes. The players they can't be everywhere. So we've just got to be seen to work together. And ultimately, the only people that suffer if we don't work together are these players. And I'm a great believer. We've just got to make sure the structure's right, or as best as possible, to allow them a smooth up path and progression to senior rugby.
How do you see the whole scene in about, say, 5-10 years' time? I mean, are we heading towards in the right direction?
If I be brutally honest, I fear a little bit for the rugby. I see the numbers across the board, and this is at all clubs that I'm going to. It's struggling to keep a hold of them. You get a bit of a surge at the beginning of the season. The lads very quickly can switch off to it. Back in the day, you got a swearing or a talking to, and you used to fight back and say, "I'll prove you wrong." Nowadays, it's a different generation. You've got to kind of cajole. If you give them a talking to, some of them will just say, "That's it, I'm not coming back." But over the piece, I would say it's going to be a struggle the next 4 or 5 years to see how it progresses. Hopefully, it's good though.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely lovely to have you join us today, and many congratulations again. Absolutely fantastic to see that, and I can't wait to see the picture of you with the cap on in the clubhouse at Neverdale.
Well, we'll need a bit of artificial intelligence and photoshopping to make that a good one, I'll tell you.
Brilliant. Well, Mark Moncrieff, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Brilliant.
This is Marooned at Gala, live on Rugby Radio.